everyone. Thanks for being here. If you look through the Bible and you look through the Old Testament, you will see that there are recurring moments in which the Lord corrects the Israelites because they have mixed and followed other gods. This is like a recurring thing in which they're corrected for. So it's not that they completely forsake the Lord, it's that they mix, right? Which ultimately puts them in complete opposition to the great commandments, both in the 10 commandments, right? Where the first one being to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, not to serve any other gods, not to make any graven images, that God is holy and to be treated as such. And then consequently, when you look now into the New Testament and you see Jesus emphasizing, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no room or option for us to mix. You make a choice. You either serve God and you follow him wholeheartedly, or you're living in a state of compromise. There's no in between in that area. And it doesn't mean we don't necessarily grow in that area. It doesn't mean we don't expand in that area. He won't reveal things in our heart that are divided. I don't want to say that that is not part of sanctification. It is, but we also need to be actively aware of the fact that this world is going to put us in consistent positions to bow and to compromise. If you bow, there's something on the other side of that for you, right? And it looks tempting. However, it is a trap. So for starters, we're going to look at Matthew 4, and I'm going to focus in on one of the statements that Satan makes to Jesus, and then we'll kind of link it in a little bit to some other scriptures. In Matthew 4, verse 8, again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these I will give you if you fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said to him, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve. So I want you to notice how Satan doesn't actually tell him to denounce his relationship with his father, but he does say, bow down and worship me. And so this is a reference to 1 John 2, where we hear about the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. These are the temptations that he is experiencing right now. And he is coming face to face with the desires of the eyes. He's coming face to face with the temptation that I will give you everything if you worship me. If you bow, I will give you the world right now. Now, we know, of course, that Jesus has possession of that. Like, he is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Every knee will bow. There is no name above his name. So we know that his inheritance was already to receive that. It was never that he was required to bow to Satan in order to get what the Lord had promised him, that he would be exalted after that. He humbled himself under the Father. He committed the will of the Father, and he was exalted. He is exalted. And that is how we have relationship with him, is in his obedience. And because of his obedience, we get the gift of eternal life from that. But make no mistake, there was an offering of a shortcut. I will give you everything now if you will bow down and worship me. And like I mentioned, we see this woven through the Old Testament. Over and over again, we see mixing. We see over and over again that Israel compromised. They brought in other gods. If you go through 1st and 2nd Kings, you will see repeatedly that it isn't just that they forsake fully the way of the Lord, but they add things, they include things. And so I'm emphasizing this to say is that in your own life, you can assume sometimes that if it doesn't come in the form of like another deity, that you're not bowing. But Jesus even emphasizes the importance of money. Like, in our heart, do we love money or do we love God? Right? And we can't serve both. So even in that, we could be divided in our affections. And you see in Daniel 2 and Daniel 3, you see this opportunity that is provided to bow. And I want to point in Daniel 2 that Nebuchadnezzar actually says, "Truly your God is the God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery." So, what happened before that? King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And in that dream, he wanted an interpretation of it. And he was willing to destroy every advisor, every soothsayer, as well as Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, every single person who would have operated in some level of advisor or advisement. He was willing to destroy them if they would not give him the answer. And after Daniel has that answer revealed to him by the Lord and he provides it to King Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges the Lord. These other religions have no problem acknowledging Jesus Christ. They have no problem saying, yeah, we believe he's real. We believe he is, a prophet. We believe he was a good man, a good teacher. They have no problem acknowledging the reality of Christianity, but they don't acknowledge the deity of Christ and that he is the only way. And so there's here again another parallel is that like we acknowledge the Lord. And then we go to Daniel 3 and we see that King Nebuchadnezzar builds a image of gold and he wants everybody to bow to the image when music is played. Again, so you don't see that King Nebuchadnezzar is saying denounce your relationship with the Lord, but he's saying on my command, you need to do as I have said. Right? And so the expectation is this is for all people. So there was a compromise that was there. There was an opportunity that was provided to compromise. And I would say this very much looks like in reality what compromise looks like. Number one, you see an abuse of power and you see a person in a position of authority doing something to force compromise on others. If you haven't seen the video I did recently about hosting false teachers, I actually talk a lot about dealing with people in positions of power and authority, is that they hold a level of responsibility and weight. And because of that, they have the ability to do a lot of things outside of the scope of what sometimes they ought to do, or sometimes they negate their own responsibility. And so similarly, what do we see in Daniel 3 is we see that paralleled, is that even though King Nebuchadnezzar, just the chapter before, is acknowledging the Lord, but now he is in a place where he is enraged that they will not bow to his golden image. So again, I'm not asking for you to denounce the Lord. I just want you to bow to my graven image. And this is what this compromise looks like. I'm not asking for you to forsake the way of the Lord. I'm just asking for you to do what we want. We're just asking for you to follow our ways. So it doesn't always come in the gold image. It doesn't always come in a statue. It comes in daily opportunities to bow to things that do not honor the Lord. And so you have two opportunities in there to continue to follow what the Lord is prompting or to bow. Now, after I'm going to again summarize more or less this passage, but he gets so upset he throws them into the furnace. They make a very profound statement that I think for a lot of us, we'd like to be Christians that could say something like this, but I don't know how many of us legitimately are, myself included. So verse 16, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. So he increases the heat of the fiery furnace and he throws them in. And he sees there's a theophany that takes place. We see the presence of Jesus Christ. And that's why he says there's not 3, but 4 men in the fire. And they come out and their heads are not singed, their cloaks are not harmed, and no smell of fire has come upon them. The Lord has preserved them through this test. And after that, they're promoted. They're promoted for their faithfulness. They're promoted for their obedience. And just spoiler alert, same with Daniel 2. That's how they ended up in this position as well. is that in both cases, they're promoted. And this is why they have such close contact with the king. But again, I want to circle back to your daily life. Your daily life is going to provide these opportunities to compromise, where you're going to have the opportunity to bow. If you bow to this, we'll give you that. If you do this, we'll do this for you. I want you to think for a minute about Saul. Saul gets appointed as a king, and instead of following the instructions of the Lord, he makes a sacrifice out of timing. He didn't wait for Samuel to come. And in this, the Lord essentially denounces him as king, gives him a second opportunity, messes it up again. And at this point, David is being raised up. He sends Samuel to anoint him with oil, and he says, okay, this is a man after my own heart. And ultimately, David is going to take over as king. And it takes time, of course. He starts out fleeing from Saul. He takes authority over Judah, and then eventually he gets all of Israel, right? And then we see what happens with Absalom later on. But ultimately, what do we know about Saul is that Saul was the person that the Lord had chosen to be in this position. And yet Saul was not faithful. I'm going to repeat that. Saul was not faithful. And so we have to understand that a person's faithfulness in these positions, like sometimes we assume that because a person's appointed into a position, we assume that they're doing the will of the Lord. Like I've heard this paralleled many times. Well, the Lord appointed them in this position. Yeah, and there are many people that the Lord has appointed in positions, including kings. If he raises up kings and he tears down kings, you see again, first and second kings, you see kings that did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and you see kings who did what was good before the Lord. So just because the Lord allows people in positions, it doesn't mean that they follow the Lord or they adhere to his direction or commandment. And we could look at that even again, similar to the last video I made, we could look at that in terms of religious leaders, people who are in positions of authorities, pastors, evangelists, apostles, prophets, doesn't matter. All of them, teachers, they can be people who are in these positions. It doesn't mean that they're faithful and obedient to God. And then vice versa, you have these opportunities and these moments. Do you bow? Because the foolproof way, believe it or not, like if you look at these situations, the foolproof way to get in and get what you want, really, like in the moment, is to compromise wholeheartedly. So think about it for a minute. If they had just done what King Nebuchadnezzar wanted, he would have acknowledged that for them. Oh, you did as I asked. But following the Lord, following the commandment and the instruction of the Lord, you are going to consistently collide with these moments. And if you don't think that's relevant for the New Testament believer, I want you to just look at the whole book of Acts and just in every moment in which they have tried to share the gospel, the good news, they come into collision with different leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, over and over again. It's the same thing that happens over and over again. And it's not different today. We're not in like a completely different world now. We still have people who are in positions of authority who are right by the Lord, and then we have people in positions of authority who are not. Just because they're in those positions and the Lord has allowed it, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are God's special vessels and we bow to them. We bow to the Lord. He's the only one we bow to. He is the only one who is worthy of our worship. And more, as time goes on, as this life gets darker and darker, and honestly, the churches, they just feel so dark to be inside of. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, try going to most evangelical churches and see what's happening in these spaces. See the compromise, see the mixing. We acknowledge the Lord on Sunday, but Monday to Saturday, we do as we wish. We live our own life. As long as you do what we ask you, as long as you bow to King Nebuchadnezzar on Sunday, you're fine. You'll be promoted. No worries. And here's the thing I want to implore you is that even if you spend the rest of your life in a position where you are resisting this temptation to bow, And who knows, maybe there will be times where you will have moments where you almost did. And you had to learn from that, learn what was in my heart, what brought this compromise in me, this desire to forsake everything for this. But pay attention right now because this is where we're going. The Bible doesn't say things are going to get better, it's going to get worse. It says wolves are going to come in, savage wolves. They're not there to spare the flock. Teachers are going to be exalted who tickle the ears of the people in the pews. We move away from sound doctrine. This is where we're going. The end times, the signs of the end times are so visible. Like even what's happening with Israel. Yes, I believe we should pray for Israel, but make no mistake, this is the end times. Israel will be surrounded. That is what it prophesies of. We know that Israel will be surrounded. You cannot deter what the Bible has prophesied. The end times are coming. The end times are here. We're in the last hour. And so you might think, okay, well, are you being pessimistic about this? No, I'm warning you. I'm going to keep warning the church. And it's going to become more tempting at times to bow. We even see that in Revelation with the mark of the beast, is that there is going to be people who won't even be able to sell and purchase food. You have to bow. If you don't bow, there's compromise that is required. If you don't bow, you will pay the price. So I implore you, start now. Pay attention to these moments, these opportunities, whether it be in your job, whether it be in your family, whether it be with your friends, whether it be in your church, whether it be in your government systems. Pay attention to how there is a consistent calling to bow to particular ideologies, motives, idols. Just mix it. It's okay. It's okay if we mix in nationalism. It's okay if we mix in pop psychology. It's okay if we mix in the prosperity gospel. It's okay if we mix in the NAR. It's okay if you bow. As long as you proclaim God, it's okay. And that's what they continue telling us. And that's why we should not measure ourselves among ourselves. Those who measure themselves among themselves are not wise. We're not called to do that. I am not using myself as a baseline or as a comparison. I am not using the people in my church as a baseline or a comparison. I use the Bible. What does the Bible say? And what do I see? Is I see that the Lord does not want us to bow. The Lord says to stand firm in the faith, resist the devil, and he will flee. And even if he doesn't, he's able, but even if he doesn't, I won't bow. And what will it cost you? Everything. Your reputation, your job, your finances, your family, your friends, your health, your well-being. Following the Lord will cost you everything. It is not a light comparison when he says you lose your life. That is legitimately the calling of the believer. And honest to God, I rebuke people who say that just because you're in the Western space, that you're not going to face specific things. It's easier to hide from certain things. But if you're actually living for God, you will experience heavy penalty on this earth, no matter where you're located. I would say I've had numerous situations where I've almost personally, physically lost my life. I don't think when we say things like, oh, well, we're in North America, well, these things won't happen. They're less likely to happen than they are in other countries. I'm not dismissing that. But make no mistake, North America, we're going in the same direction as the rest of the world. This is what is happening, and this is what is being foreshadowed in the Bible. It tells us this, is that those who persecute you will think that they're doing God's service. So I implore you, I exhort you, look around, pay attention to what's happening in your own life. Where are the spaces where you are being called to bow? And pray, ask the Lord, am I missing something? Have I bowed before? Have I compromised before? And if you have, repent and ask Him to show you how to live this life wholeheartedly for Him. And this is a daily practice. This is not something where, like, when we think about Lamentations, I want to say 3, where it says, like, His mercies are new every morning. Why is it new every morning? Because we need it every day. Every day, I need His mercy. It's not like I can just take the mercy from yesterday and then we're all set. We're done. No, I need so much every single day to walk this out. And every day, He pours out more on us. Every single day, I need His mercy and I need His grace to do this. And so, again, I implore you, pray, ask the Lord to reveal it and show you what next steps to take. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, night, wherever you are. Bye.